There is something about the way you have been moving through love lately that tells me you already know the answer. You just have not been ready to admit it yet. You have been watching, measuring, paying attention to every single detail, and deep down you have already noticed the pattern. The people who stay are not always the ones who make the biggest promises. They are not the ones who sweep you off your feet with grand gestures or beautiful words that sound like poetry but dissolve in the morning light. No, the ones who stay are the ones who show up again and again without needing to be reminded. And that is exactly where your heart is leading you right now. Consistency is no longer a nice quality to have in a partner or in yourself. It is becoming the one thing you refuse to negotiate on. This energy is not random. It is not a phase. It is a deep, slow transformation that has been building inside of you for longer than you realize. And by the end of what I am about to share with you, you are going to understand exactly why this shift is happening and how it is going to change the way you experience love from this moment forward. So stay with me, because what is coming next is going to hit differently than anything you have heard before. Tip 1. The walls you built were never about keeping love out. They were about testing who was willing to climb. Let me tell you something that most people will never understand about you. When you pull back, when you get quiet, when you suddenly seem distant or hard to reach, it is not because you have stopped caring. It is the exact opposite. You care so deeply, so intensely, that you need to protect yourself from the devastation of giving everything to someone who is never going to match your effort. And that is what the walls have always been about. They were never designed to keep love away from you. They were a test, a silent, unspoken test that most people failed without even knowing they were being evaluated. You have spent years watching people crumble at the first sign of resistance. You would step back just slightly, just enough to see what they would do, and most of them disappeared. They took your silence as rejection. They took your need for space as a sign that you were not interested. And every single time that happened, it confirmed what you already suspected, that their love was conditional on convenience. They loved you when it was easy. They stayed when it felt good. But the moment you needed them to reach a little further, to try a little harder, to prove that their words were not just noise, they vanished. And here is the part that has been quietly eating at you. Every time someone walked away from your walls instead of trying to understand them, a small piece of you wondered if maybe you were the problem. Maybe you were too guarded. Maybe you expected too much. Maybe you should have made it easier for them to love you. But I need you to hear this clearly. You were never the problem. Your standards were never the problem. The people who left were simply showing you that they did not have the depth to match yours. They were not wrong for leaving, because that is their nature. But you were not wrong for needing what you needed either. What is happening now is something different. You are starting to realize that the walls serve their purpose, but they have also kept you in a holding pattern. You have been so focused on protecting yourself that you have forgotten what it feels like to be fully open, fully vulnerable, fully present with someone without the safety net of distance. And the energy around you right now is pushing you toward a choice. You can keep the walls exactly as they are and continue to feel safe but isolated, or you can begin slowly and carefully to let someone see what is behind them. This does not mean you tear everything down overnight. That is not how you operate, and honestly, that would not be wise for anyone. But it does mean you start to recognize the difference between walls that protect and walls that imprison. There is a version of you on the other side of this shift who still has boundaries, who still has standards, who still requires consistency and effort, but who is no longer hiding behind the test. Instead of waiting to see if someone will climb the wall, you start to let them in through the door. You show them where it is. You give them the chance to walk through it with full knowledge of who you are and what you need. This is the beginning of everything that is about to change for you. And the reason I say that with such certainty is because the next thing I need to tell you is going to explain exactly why this moment in your life is not a coincidence. Tip 2. You have been attracting mirrors, not partners, and that cycle is about to break. There is a pattern in your love life that you may not have fully recognized yet, but once I name it, you are going to see it everywhere. The people you have been drawn to, the ones who captured your attention, the ones who made your heart race and your mind spin, they were not random choices. They were mirrors. Every single one of them was reflecting back to you the exact thing you needed to work on within yourself. And the reason those relationships felt so intense, so consuming, so impossible to walk away from even when they were clearly not working, is because you were not just falling in love with another person. You were falling into the deepest, most uncomfortable parts of yourself. Think about the partner who was emotionally unavailable. That was not just bad luck or poor timing. That was the universe showing you the places where you too have been emotionally unavailable, not to others but to yourself. Think about the person who could never quite commit, who always kept one foot out the door. That was a reflection of your own fear of fully surrendering to something you could not control. And the one who criticized everything you did, who made you feel like you were never quite enough. That was the mirror of your own inner critic, the voice inside your head that has been measuring and judging and finding you lacking for as long as you can remember. This is not about blame. I am not saying you attracted bad people because you are broken. That is not how this works. What I am saying is that the universe has been using your love life as a classroom, and every relationship was a lesson designed to bring you closer to the version of yourself who is ready for real, lasting, consistent love. The problem was that you kept focusing on the other person. You kept trying to fix them, change them, understand them when the real work was always internal. It was always about you. And here is where the shift comes in. You are done with mirrors. Not because you have reached some state of perfection where there is nothing left to learn, but because you have done enough of the internal work to stop attracting people who only exist to show you your wounds. The next person who comes into your life, or the deepening that happens with someone already there, is not going to be a mirror. They are going to be a match. Someone who complements you instead of completing you. Someone who has done their own work, faced their own shadows, and is ready to build something real instead of just reflecting lessons back and forth. But this only happens if you stop looking for the familiar. The familiar feels comfortable, yes, but comfortable and healthy are not the same thing. You have been confusing intensity with connection, chaos with chemistry, and the exhausting work of trying to save someone with the genuine effort of building a partnership. The new energy coming into your love life is going to feel quieter. It is going to feel calmer. And your first instinct might be to dismiss it as boring or to wonder if you are really attracted to this person. But I need you to trust the stillness. The storm was never love. It was just noise. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Tip 3. The version of love you were taught is not the version of love you deserve. Somewhere along the way, someone taught you that love was supposed to be hard, that it required sacrifice, suffering, compromise that felt more like erasure. Maybe it was a parent who stayed in a relationship that drained them dry. Maybe it was a culture that glorified struggle and told you that anything worth having had to hurt. Maybe it was simply the accumulated weight of every story you have ever heard about love that ended in tragedy, in loss, in the kind of heartbreak that people write songs about. But here is the truth that no one told you. Love is not supposed to feel like a battle you are constantly losing. Real love, the kind that lasts, the kind that builds something meaningful and enduring. It is not easy in the sense that it requires no effort. But it should never feel like you are drowning. It should never feel like you are losing yourself piece by piece just to keep someone else happy. And it should absolutely never feel like you are performing a version of yourself that you barely recognize just to be accepted. You have been carrying a definition of love that was never yours to begin with. It was handed to you by people who did not know any better, and you adopted it because you did not have another frame of reference. But now you do. Now you have enough experience, enough pain, enough wisdom earned through years of trial and error to know that what you were taught does not match what you actually need. And that gap between what you were taught and what you need is exactly where your unhappiness has been living. This is why so many of your past relationships followed the same script. You would meet someone, feel that initial spark, and then slowly begin to mold yourself into whatever they needed you to be. You would shrink your opinions, silence your needs, dim your light, all in the name of keeping the peace, of being a good partner, of not being too much. And every time you did that, every time you chose their comfort over your authenticity, you moved further away from the kind of love that would actually fulfill you. The new definition of love that is taking root inside of you right now is radically different from everything you have known. It is not about sacrifice. It is about mutual investment. It is not about losing yourself. It is about finding someone who loves the full, unedited, complicated version of who you are. It is not about earning someone's affection through performance. It is about being seen, truly seen, and having that be enough. This transition is not comfortable. Letting go of a belief system that has governed your entire love life is one of the most disorienting things a person can do. You might feel guilty for wanting more. You might feel selfish for refusing to settle. You might even feel afraid that this new standard will leave you alone, that no one will ever meet you where you are. But I want you to sit with this thought for a moment. Would you rather be alone and whole, or partnered and hollow? Because that is the choice you have been unconsciously making for years, and it is time to choose differently. Tip 4: your body has been keeping score, and it is finally ready to release. You probably do not realize how much of your romantic history is stored in your body. Not in your memory, not in your thoughts, but in the physical tension you carry every single day. The tightness in your shoulders when someone raises their voice. The knot in your stomach when a text message goes unanswered for too long. The way your jaw clenches when someone makes a promise, because a part of you is already bracing for the disappointment of watching them break it. These are not random physical sensations. They are the accumulated records of every time someone you loved let you down. Your mind might have moved on from certain relationships. You might tell yourself that you are over it, that it does not affect you anymore, that you have processed it and put it behind you. But your body tells a different story. Your body remembers the exact moment you realized someone was lying to you. Your body remembers the way it felt to be chosen second, to be the backup plan, to be the one who gave everything and received scraps in return. And those memories do not fade just because your mind decides to file them away. They linger. They accumulate. And eventually, they start to influence your behavior in ways you cannot consciously control. This is why you sometimes react to small things in ways that feel disproportionate. A partner forgets to call, and instead of mild annoyance, you feel a wave of panic that seems to come from nowhere. Someone cancels plans, and instead of understanding, you feel a surge of anger that surprises even you. These reactions are not about the present moment. They are echoes of the past, your body sounding the alarm because it has been here before, and it remembers how the story ended. The energy surrounding you right now is calling for release. Not the intellectual kind of release where you talk about your feelings and analyze your patterns, although that has its place. I am talking about a physical, visceral release. The kind that happens when you finally allow yourself to cry about something you told yourself you were over. The kind that happens when you scream into a pillow or take a long walk and let the movement shake loose the tension you have been holding for years. The kind that happens when you stop performing strength and let yourself feel the full weight of everything you have been carrying. This is not weakness. This is the bravest thing you can do. Because as long as your body is holding on to the pain of past relationships, it will continue to protect you in ways that prevent new love from getting close. It will continue to create distance, to build walls, to trigger fight or flight responses in moments that call for openness and trust. And no amount of positive thinking or affirmations or manifesting is going to override a nervous system that has been trained to associate love with danger. Your body is ready to let go. It has been waiting for permission, and this moment right now is that permission. You do not have to do it all at once. You do not have to have some dramatic breakthrough where everything is suddenly healed. But you do have to start. One small release at a time, one layer of armor removed each day, until the person underneath, the soft, open, deeply loving person who has been hiding beneath all that protection, finally has room to breathe. Tip 5. The silence between words is where real intimacy lives. You have always been good with words. Not necessarily the loud, dramatic kind of words, but the precise ones. The ones that cut straight to the heart of the matter. You know how to communicate what you think, what you observe, what you analyze about the world around you. But there is a kind of communication that goes beyond words, and it is the one area where you have struggled the most in your love life. I am talking about silence. Not the uncomfortable silence that happens when two people have run out of things to say. Not the punishing silence that is used as a weapon to control or manipulate. I am talking about the kind of silence that exists between two people who are so comfortable with each other that words become unnecessary. The silence of sitting side by side on a quiet evening and feeling completely at peace. The silence of looking at someone across the room and knowing, without a single word being spoken, that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. This kind of silence terrifies you. And the reason it terrifies you is because it requires a level of vulnerability that your mind cannot control. When you are talking, you are in charge. You can choose your words carefully, steer the conversation, manage the impression you are making. But in silence, there is nothing to hide behind. In silence, you are fully exposed, and the other person can see not just what you want them to see, but everything. The doubt, the fear, the longing, the parts of yourself you have spent years trying to keep hidden. Your love life up until now has been heavily verbal. You have tried to think your way through relationships, to discuss every issue, to create logical frameworks for how a partnership should work. And while communication is important, there is a limit to what words can accomplish. Some of the most important things in a relationship cannot be spoken. They can only be felt. The safety of being held without having to explain why you need it. The comfort of being understood without having to lay out a detailed argument for your feelings. The intimacy of being truly known by someone who does not need you to narrate your inner world because they can sense it. The shift that is coming in your love life is going to challenge your relationship with silence. You are going to find yourself in moments where the old you would have filled the space with analysis, with questions, with conversation designed to maintain control. But something inside you is going to resist that impulse. Something is going to whisper that the most powerful thing you can do right now is simply be present. Simply exist in the same space as another person without trying to manage, direct, or understand the moment. This is where real intimacy lies. Not in the grand declarations or the deep conversations at midnight or the carefully worded text messages. It lives in the space between words, in the breath between sentences, in the quiet moments that most people rush past because they are too uncomfortable to sit with the stillness. And you, with your incredible capacity for observation and your deep need for genuine connection, are perfectly built for this kind of intimacy. You just have to let go of the need to control it long enough to actually experience it. Tip 6. Forgiveness is not about them. It is the key you have been searching for. There is someone from your past who still occupies space in your heart. Not because you love them, not because you want them back, but because what they did to you left a mark so deep that it changed the way you approach love. You have tried to move past it. You have tried to rationalize it, analyze it, understand it from every possible angle. And in some ways, your mind has made peace with it. You can talk about it without flinching. You can acknowledge that it happened without falling apart. But there is a difference between intellectual acceptance and genuine forgiveness, and you have not crossed that line yet. The unforgiveness you carry is not a character flaw. It is a survival mechanism. Your brain learned that holding on to the anger, the resentment, the detailed memory of exactly what happened and how it made you feel was a way to protect yourself from ever being hurt that way again. As long as you remember the pain, you will never be foolish enough to walk into the same trap twice. That is the logic your subconscious mind has been operating on, and it has served you well in some ways. You have not repeated certain mistakes. You have not gone back to people who hurt you. You have maintained your boundaries with an iron grip. But that same iron grip is now preventing you from opening your hand to receive something new. You cannot hold on to old pain and reach for new love at the same time. Your hands are full. Your heart is full. Not full of love, but full of the residue of every wound you refuse to release. And every new person who comes into your life is met with the accumulated suspicion of everyone who came before them. They are being judged not for their own actions, but for the sins of people they have never met. Forgiveness is the most misunderstood concept in human experience. People think it means condoning what happened. They think it means saying that what was done to you was acceptable, that it did not matter, that the person who hurt you deserves to be let off the hook. But that is not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is a decision you make for yourself about yourself that has nothing to do with the other person. It is the moment you decide that the weight of carrying this pain is heavier than the fear of letting it go. It is the moment you choose your own freedom over the familiar prison of resentment. You do not have to forgive all at once. You do not have to feel it before you choose it. Forgiveness is not an emotion. It is an action. It is the daily, deliberate decision to put the weight down, even when your muscles have grown so accustomed to carrying it that it feels strange to stand without it. And some days you will pick it back up again because old habits are stubborn and pain can feel like home when you have lived with it long enough. But each time you put it down, it stays down a little longer. Each time you choose release over resentment, the muscle of forgiveness grows stronger. What waits on the other side of this process is something you have been craving for longer than you can remember. Lightness. The simple, profound lightness of a heart that is no longer weighed down by old stories. The freedom to meet someone new without the ghost of someone old standing between you. The ability to trust not because you are naive, but because you are no longer letting past pain dictate your present choices. This is where your love life transforms, and it starts with a decision that has nothing to do with anyone but you. Tip 7. You do not need to earn love, you need to allow it. Of all the things I am going to tell you today, This might be the one that hits the hardest because it strikes at the core of how you have operated your entire life. You are a person who earns things. You earn your achievements. You earn respect through hard work. You earn your place in the world by being useful, competent, reliable, and indispensable. And at some point, without even realizing it, you applied that same framework to love. You decided that love was something you had to earn through effort, through service, through being so impossibly good that no one could ever justify leaving you. This belief has driven you to do extraordinary things in your relationships. You have been the one who remembers every detail, every preference, every important date. You have been the one who shows up when no one asked you to, who anticipates needs before they are spoken, who works tirelessly to make the other person's life easier, smoother, better. And you have done all of this not because someone required it of you, but because somewhere deep inside, you believe that if you stopped being useful, you would stop being loved. Let me say that again because I need it to land. You have been operating under the belief that your value in a relationship is directly tied to what you provide. That love is a transaction, and your currency is service. That the moment you stop giving, the moment you stop performing, the moment you are just a person with needs and flaws and nothing special to offer, you will be abandoned. This belief is a lie. It is a deeply embedded, highly convincing, thoroughly persuasive lie, but it is a lie nonetheless. Love is not a paycheck you receive in exchange for labor. It is not a reward for being the most competent, the most organized, the most self-sacrificing person in the room. Real love, the kind you are being called toward right now, is not earned. It is allowed. It flows toward you not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And who you are, underneath all the doing and the fixing and the helping, is someone who deserves to be loved simply for existing. I know that sentence might make you uncomfortable. You might even feel resistance rising in your chest right now. A voice that says that is naive, that is not how the world works, that love without merit is love without meaning. But I want you to consider the possibility that this voice is not wisdom. It is fear. It is the fear of a person who has never been loved without conditions, who has never experienced the terrifying freedom of being accepted without having to justify their existence. The shift that is happening in your love life right now is asking you to put down the tools, to stop building, stop fixing, stop earning, to sit still, empty-handed, and allow someone to love you not for what you bring to the table, but for the simple, irreplaceable fact that you are you. This is the hardest thing you will ever do. It is harder than any grand gesture, any sacrifice, any act of service you have ever performed, because earning love gives you control. Allowing love requires surrender, and surrender has never been your strong suit. Tip 8. The right person will not complete you. They will challenge you to complete yourself. There is a fantasy that you have been carrying for a long time, even if you would never admit it out loud. It is the fantasy of the person who finally makes everything make sense, the one who fills the gaps, who smooths the rough edges, who takes the fragmented pieces of your life and assembles them into something whole and beautiful. You have been looking for this person in every relationship, searching for the missing piece, the one who will finally make you feel complete. But here is what the universe has been trying to show you through every failed relationship, every disappointment, every heartbreak that left you wondering what you did wrong. No one can complete you, not because the right person does not exist, but because you are not incomplete. You never were. The sense of emptiness you have been trying to fill with another person was never about a missing piece. It was about unfinished business with yourself. It was about the parts of your own life that you have been neglecting, the dreams you have been postponing, the relationship with yourself that you have been putting on hold while you waited for someone else to make it all worthwhile. The right person, the one who is aligned with the energy you are stepping into right now, is not going to complete you. They are going to challenge you. They are going to push you toward the edges of your comfort zone and stand there waiting while you decide whether to expand or retreat. They are going to love you enough to refuse to be your crutch, to decline the role of savior, to insist that you stand on your own 2 feet not because they do not care, but because they respect you too much to enable your smallness. This is the kind of love that most people are not ready for, because it does not always feel good in the moment. It does not always tell you what you want to hear. It holds a mirror up to your face and says, I see everything, the beauty and the mess, and I am not going anywhere, but I am also not going to pretend the mess is not there. This kind of love demands growth. It demands honesty. It demands the willingness to be uncomfortable in service of becoming the person you are capable of being. And for you, this is particularly significant because your natural tendency is to focus on the other person's growth. You see their potential. You see what they could be if they just tried a little harder, changed a little more, listened a little better. But the love that is coming for you is going to flip that lens. It is going to point the spotlight back at you and ask, what about your potential? What about the dreams you shelved? What about the version of yourself that you have been too afraid or too busy or too focused on everyone else to become? The person who is meant for you is not going to save you from yourself. They are going to inspire you to save yourself. And the difference between those two things is the difference between a love that traps you and a love that sets you free. You have spent enough time in relationships that kept you comfortable but stagnant. The energy around you right now is calling for something completely different, something that terrifies and excites you in equal measure. A partnership that is not about filling voids but about two whole people choosing to walk the same path, not because they need each other but because they want each other. And that wanting, free from desperation, free from the fear of being alone, free from the need to be saved, that is the purest form of love there is. Some people watch, others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting, it's about moving. Tip 9. Patience is not passive. It is the most active form of trust. You have been told your whole life to be patient. Patient with people, patient with the process, patient with the timing of the universe. And you have tried. You really have. But your version of patience has always had a deadline attached to it. You would give something or someone a certain amount of time, a window of opportunity. And if they did not deliver within that window, you were done. You would file it away as another failure, another disappointment, another reason to believe that the things you want are always just out of reach. But real patience, the kind that actually transforms your love life, is nothing like that. Real patience does not have a deadline. It does not come with conditions or ultimatums. It is not the gritted teeth, white-knuckle endurance of waiting for something while secretly resenting the fact that it has not arrived yet. Real patience is a state of being. It is the deep, quiet confidence that what is meant for you is already on its way, and that your only job is to continue becoming the person who is ready to receive it. This distinction is critical because the way you have been practicing patience has actually been working against you. Every time you set a deadline for love, every time you said if it does not happen by this age or this year or this milestone, then it is never going to happen, you were sending a clear message to yourself and to the world that you did not trust the process. And that lack of trust created a frantic energy around you, a sense of urgency that pushed people away rather than drawing them in. Nobody wants to be the person who arrives just in time to beat the deadline. Nobody wants to feel like they are auditioning for a role that needs to be filled immediately, or the show is canceled. The patience you are being called to practice now is radically different. It is the patience of a gardener who plants seeds and then trusts the soil, the sun, the rain to do what they were designed to do. The gardener does not stand over the earth screaming at it to grow faster. The gardener does not dig up the seeds every few days to check their progress. The gardener waters, tends, protects, and waits. Not with anxiety but with faith. Not with frustration but with the understanding that growth happens on its own schedule. And the most important thing is to create the conditions for it to thrive. Your love life is a garden. And for too long, you have been digging up your own seeds. You have been so impatient for results that you have sabotaged the very things that were trying to grow. You have ended connections too early because they were not blooming fast enough. You have walked away from potential because it did not look the way you expected it to look in the beginning stages. You have mistaken the slowness of real growth for the absence of growth, and in doing so, you have pulled up flowers that were just about to break through the surface. The new patience you are stepping into is not about waiting longer. It is about waiting differently. It is about trusting that the love you want is not being withheld from you as punishment. It is being prepared for you with the same care and attention that you put into everything else in your life. And when it arrives, you will know. Not because it will be loud or dramatic or earth-shattering, but because it will feel like coming home. And home is worth waiting for, no matter how long the journey takes. Tip 10. Your love story is not behind you. It is being written right now. I know there have been moments, probably more than you would admit, where you looked at your love life and thought the best chapters were already over. Where you felt like the window for deep, transformative, breathtaking love had closed, and all that was left were the quieter, smaller, less exciting pages. Maybe you compared yourself to people who seemed to have figured it out younger, who found their person and built their life while you were still searching, still hoping, still wondering when it would be your turn. And in those moments of comparison, something inside you started to believe that maybe your story was different. Maybe you were meant to walk a lonelier path. But I need you to understand something with every fiber of your being. Your love story is not behind you. It is not a chapter that has already been written and closed. It is happening right now in this very moment, with every breath you take and every choice you make. The fact that it has not looked the way you expected does not mean it is not unfolding. It just means the story is bigger than you imagined, more complex than the simple narrative you were promised, and infinitely more beautiful than anything you could have planned. Every heartbreak was a plot twist. Every disappointment was character development. Every moment of loneliness was the writer setting the stage for something you could not have appreciated without first understanding what its absence felt like. You have not been wasting time. You have been accumulating the wisdom, the depth, the emotional richness that will make the next chapter the most powerful one you have ever lived. And here is what makes your story different from most. You are not someone who loves casually. You are not someone who gives pieces of yourself and calls it connection. When you love with a completeness and a devotion that most people will never understand. That kind of love deserves a story worthy of it. And a story worthy of it does not begin in the easy, obvious, predictable moments. It begins in the fire. It begins after the storms. It begins when a person has been broken enough to know what healing looks like, and brave enough to choose it anyway. The love that is waiting for you is not a consolation prize. It is not the universe's way of saying, well, the first choices did not work out, so here is something to keep you company. No, the love that is waiting for you is the main event. It is the thing your entire journey has been leading toward. And it requires someone who has lived enough, felt enough, lost enough, and grown enough to recognize it when it arrives. That person is you. Right now, in this moment, with all your scars and all your wisdom and all your beautiful, relentless refusal to settle for less than what your heart knows it deserves. Do not let anyone, including yourself, tell you that your best days of love are in the past. They are not. They are directly ahead of you, closer than you think, waiting for the moment when you finally stop looking backward and start walking forward with the confidence of someone who knows, without a shadow of doubt, that they are worthy of everything they have been asking for. The energy around you is shifting. Can you feel it? It has been building throughout everything I have shared with you today. And if you have stayed with me this long, it is because something deep inside you recognizes the truth in these words. You are not the same person you were when you pressed play on this video. Something has moved. Something has opened. A door that has been sealed shut for longer than you care to remember has cracked open just enough to let the light in, and that light is not going away. This is your moment. Not tomorrow, not next week. Not when you feel ready or when the circumstances are perfect or when you have figured out every last detail. Now, right now, the universe does not wait for perfect conditions. It responds to decision. It responds to the moment a person stops saying someday and starts saying today. And that is exactly what I am asking you to do. Everything you have heard in this message was not random. It was not generic advice thrown at a screen hoping it would stick to someone. It was specific. It was intentional. And it was delivered at this exact moment, because you are standing at a crossroads that will define the next chapter of your love life. One path leads back to the familiar. The same patterns, the same walls, the same quiet ache of knowing you are capable of so much more than what you have been allowing yourself to experience. The other path leads somewhere you have never been, and that is exactly why it feels both terrifying and magnetic at the same time. You have spent enough time watching from the sidelines. You have spent enough time analyzing, preparing, waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives because perfection is not the prerequisite for change, courage is. And you have more courage than you give yourself credit for. You have survived every storm that has ever come your way. You have rebuilt yourself after every collapse. You have maintained your standards when it would have been so much easier to let them go. That is not the resume of someone who is weak or broken. That is the resume of someone who is ready. So here is my final question for you, and I want you to sit with it long after this video ends. What are you going to do with everything you now know? Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. And you did not come here to be entertained. You came here because you want something to change. You came here because you are tired of the same cycle, the same results, the same quiet disappointment that attempt at love that falls short of what you know is possible. You have two options after this video: close it and hope things shift, or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are.